Last Wednesday, 12 Republican senators joined with Chuck Schumer and the Senate Democrats in voting to allow the debate over the so-called Respect for Marriage Act to make that move forward. But as Utah Republican Senator Mike Lee explained to Tony on Washington Watch last week, the battle regarding the Respect for Marriage Act is not yet over, as there is still time for any 3 of the 12 to reverse course when the Senate returns next Monday. Now, Senator Lee has proposed an amendment for the legislation that protects religious liberty, and last week he sent a letter co-signed by 20 of his Senate colleagues urging the 12 Republican senators to oppose cloture on the legislation unless his amendment is added to the bill. Joining me now to discuss this and more news of the day is U.S. Representative Vicky Hartzler. She serves on the House Armed Services Committee and the House Agriculture Committee. She is also the chairwoman of the House Values Action Team, and she represents Missouri's 4th Congressional District. Congresswoman Hartzler, good to see you today.
Good to see you too.
Now, we've talked about this quite a bit, but tell us from your perspective, why is this so-called Respect for Marriage Act, which many of us are referring to as the Disrespect for Marriage Act, such a threat to religious liberty?
Well, they tried to carve out a religious exemption for churches that conduct same-sex marriage ceremonies, but there's no protection for ordinary Christians who are in the workplace to protect them and their religious beliefs. And so if you are a Barronelle Stutzman who has a flower shop, or if you're Jack Phillips who has a producing cakes, you are going to be forced to participate, and it does away with their religious rights. It does away with the rights of a business person to be able to have a male and female bathroom, and to force them to have to provide coverage for sex change operations in their business insurance plans. I mean, all of these concerns are not addressed in this bill. And it is a disrespect for marriage, because we know that marriage is between a man and a woman. It's the best set up for children to have the opportunity to have both a mom and a dad. And it's very disappointing that the 12 senators voted like they did, but I am hopeful that as the American people speak up and contact these 12 senators, that at least 3 of them will change their minds and will not codify this terrible ruling by the Supreme Court and trample on our religious freedoms.
Now, it's curious to me that the proponents of this bill would claim that they are respecting religious freedom by telling clergy, members of the clergy, pastors and others, that they do not have to perform same-sex marriages. Now, by most people's understanding, the First Amendment guaranteed that right back when the Constitution was written. So this feels a bit like telling Americans that you do not have to house and quarter troops if you do not want to in exchange for the same-sex marriage law. Why are we supposed to feel good about something that was written in the Constitution back in 1789?
Oh, that is so true. And they act like they're being so magnanimous in this bill to protect our pastors, so not force them to carry out same-sex marriage ceremonies. And yet they trample on the freedom of everyone else in this country and the rights that are enshrined in the First Amendment. And so it's a very sad situation, and it's deceiving. And people need not be deceived by this. It is a disrespect for marriage, and it is it's going to continue to trample on the freedoms of Christians to believe and to act and live according to their faith in this country if this passes.
Now, we've talked about the disappointing vote last week in the Senate. There is another opportunity next week. Do you have any sense that there's been movement in the Senate among the 12 Republicans that originally voted to move this bill along?
I have not talked to them or have some knowledge of that. I certainly hope they will step up and do the right thing. There's a couple of members who were chairman of the Senate Values Action Team, like I am the chairman of the House Values Action Team. And we are supposed to be leaders on behalf of faith, family, and freedom. And by family, I mean the traditional family, the one that has stood the test of time for thousands and thousands of years, and stand up for faith and religious freedom. And so I hope and pray that they will reconsider next week and do the right thing for the American public.
Now, for those who are watching and listening, if you want to do something, and we hope that you do, especially if you're in states like Iowa, North Carolina, Missouri, text the word marriage to 67742 to get information on what you can do right now. Text the word marriage to 67742. Now, Congresswoman Hartzler, I want to switch topics to the border with you. Title 42 is now slated to end exactly 1 month from now. What's the impact of that going to be?
But we're going to see an increase in the invasion that is occurring at the southern border, and it's devastating. Under the Biden administration, we've already seen over 4 million illegal migrants cross over the border into our country. We know and have caught 98 individuals who are on the terrorist watch list, and there are hundreds of thousands of individuals who have not been caught. That the Border Patrol did not encounter, but yet they know that they have crossed over into our country, and we do not know how many terrorists are in that group of people. So we have a very serious situation, very dangerous situation, not only because of the terrorists, but the record amount of drugs that are coming across the border. And with this Title 42 done away with, it's just going to exacerbate the problem, and even more individuals will be coming over, crossing illegally into our country.
Despite the numbers that you mentioned there still seems to be disagreement about the nature of the problem. Congressman Bishop recently had a chance to ask Secretary Mayorkas about the level of security at the border. Here's what he had to say. Let's play clip 1.
Secretary Mayorkas, do you continue to maintain that the border is secure?
Yes, and we are working day in and day out to enhance its security, Congressman.
Right. Congresswoman Hartzler, what's your reaction to that?
Oh, he's wrong. He is dead wrong. And it's sad. We've had over 1,000 illegal migrants that have actually died crossing the border, but it is not a secure border. When you have over 15 straight months of over 150,000 illegal migrants crossing, 8 straight months, over 200,000. This is not a secure border. We have record amount of fentanyls coming across the southern border. We had record amount of Americans die of a fentanyl overdose last year. Over 100,000 Americans die. I was visiting with a Vietnam veteran the other day, and we were talking about the loss of over 55,000 Americans in the Vietnam War and brothers in arms and what that meant to him personally. And he said to me how tragic that was. But he said, Representative, think about it. We lost 55,000 of my fellow brothers in arms in Vietnam. We lost 100,000 last year due to the fentanyl. He says, where is the outrage? Where are the protests? Where's the people encountering government officials protesting about that and the loss of American lives like we were met with when we came back? And I thought he had a very powerful point.
To that point, there have been, in fiscal year 2021, 1.7 million migrant encounters. 2022, the fiscal year ending 2022, 2.3 million encounters with illegal immigrants. If this is a secure border, it makes one wonder what an insecure border would look like. Now, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer took this issue on as well. He expressed concern about the declining birth rates and suggested that our immigration policy should be affected by that. Let's play clip 2.
Now more than ever, we're short of workers. We have a population that is not reproducing it on its own with the same level that it used to. The only way we're going to have a great future in America is if we welcome and embrace immigrants, the dreamers, and all of them, because our ultimate goal is to help the dreamers, but get a path to citizenship for all 11 million or however many undocumented there are here.
Congresswoman, what's your reaction to the idea that our goal is to get citizenship for everyone who is in the country illegal presently?
Well, it's not, he talks about it's the only way to increase workers. We do have a shortage of workers, but what we need to do is embrace the lives that are right now being snuffed out by abortion. And he and his party have been leaders promoting abortion, and they're so extreme. They support it up to the moment of birth. And we have lost 63 million Americans at the hands of abortionists across this country since Roe versus Wade. Think about how many workers, how many individuals would be here today if we had not had abortion. And yet he continues to double down on how important it is that we have the ability and we encourage abortion. And then he promotes the illegal immigration. I do think we need reform on immigration, but we need to embrace people to come here legally. And the first step is to secure the border. And then we can talk about reforming our system and allow Americans who want to follow the laws and respect our Constitution to come here. We welcome them, but he should also welcome American lives and quit encouraging snuffing out of those lives through abortion.
You're right about that. And there seems to be some irony here because America, of course, is a pro-immigration place. And Americans are pro-immigration because most of us are at some point at least in our heritage, immigrants to America. But we have this strange convergence of issues because the same week that Senator Schumer is working so hard to redefine the institution of marriage, and he highlights the problem of a culture that doesn't value marriage and family and children and that heritage, is saying, well, the problem is not that we're not having enough children. We just need to import more people. Is that really the solution to the problem that he's identified?
No, not at all. We need to encourage the people who are, certainly we need to embrace life and quit promoting abortion. But then also we need to look at why Americans aren't working. And this is a problem. We need to, his party and his president passed legislation to pay people to stay home during the pandemic. And that is still having ramifications. It caused supply chain shortages and people not being in the workplace. And there still is a problem with that. So we need to look at what government incentives there are to encourage people to stay home versus getting back to work. That's something that should be looked at. But then also workforce development and education. But also we have a drug problem. And that is something that we need to address. Too many people are on drugs, and we need to work at that. We have a shortage of child care workers. And so maybe we could encourage that some more. There's a lot of other policies that could be and should be looked at beyond just embracing what he is promoting as
Congresswoman
illegal
Hartzler,
immigration.
we are out of time. It is a multifaceted problem, to be sure, and we will continue this conversation. Thanks for being with us today.
Beth, thank you.